This is the Empowering Healthy Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each episode, we'll dive into topics important to folks who want to run businesses that are both nicely profitable, sustainable, and scalable, and who want to achieve balance in their lives and realize their potential inside and outside of work. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for businesses. Let's get started. So one of the most common topics in these episodes is AI. And almost all my guests are grappling with it unless they have the luxury of being in the creative brand development space and not have to do content creation or marketing operations. And so I know with a lot of software and technology decisions, you can either try to figure it out and do it yourself, or you can rent something that somebody else has already built. And so I'm really excited to have today's guest on the show. He's an SEO systems builder, an AI growth entrepreneur, and a digital infrastructure operator. He's built and scaled SaaS platforms focused on AI-powered automation and SEO workflows and other operational systems for agencies and small and mid-sized businesses. He's also launched other ventures spanning online real estate and crypto and digital business infrastructure, in addition to marketing industry work. He's the co-founder of Helm and Willow. Zach Francis, welcome to the show.
What's up, Cal? Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it. And great intro there. And excited to talk about it. And kind of like you said, a lot of people are either kind of grappling with AI or they're diving head first. And we chose to go the kind of dive head first into it and learn how to harness it in the way that we want. So I'm excited to get into it with you.
Awesome. Well, before we dig into the details, why don't you tell me a little bit more about the business and what's the single most powerful strategy that's driving success in your company these days?
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah. So we just recently launched our newest AI business building platform that has an autonomous engine inside of it called Willow. That one, the kind of the biggest powerful driving force right now behind it is definitely referrals and word of mouth. So we've been able to not only orchestrate that a little bit, but also it's just naturally happening a lot more than we've ever had in some of our previous and past businesses. So referrals, word of mouth, as everybody knows, those are always the best kind of leads that you can get in the first place. The tricky struggle with that is that it's really hard to manufacture that at scale and get tons and tons of referrals in that sense. So we're kind of at that space where we're trying to build that in deeper into our system and software with, referrals, referral credits, referral usage, where the person giving the referral is either getting some sort of benefit, whether it's monetary or credits and so on. So, but definitely getting the referral engine going has been super helpful with us at this earlier stage of launching Willow. And on our previous and past businesses, referrals have been a pretty strong driving force as well. And so really honing in, figuring out, getting the details of, hey, what's making people want to share it? How are we able to replicate this on a little bit faster and bigger scale to, springboard you to where we want to go? That's definitely kind of been the most powerful factor right now that we've been seeing. So really excited about it.
Yeah, I would share that sentiment. I mean, SmartBooks, my day job business, doing bookkeeping and accounting, finance and tax for businesses. We've grown that business through referrals as well. And we've tried a lot of different things with marketing and salespeople and everything. But at the end of the day, referrals and word of mouth has been the single most important driver of our growth. But like you said, it's hard to scale. It's hard to say, I'm going to double my investment in that and get double the number of referrals. It doesn't really scale that way. And we have less control over the kinds of referrals we get, the size, the industry, the location, what they're looking for. So the qualification can be harder to do with referrals as well. So they're great and incredibly valuable, and the close rate's usually pretty high, but you're right, hard to scale.
Yeah, definitely it's hard to scale. And I was hearing somebody the other day, and they had a metric that they're tracking, and it was like, I think it was called revenue per hour spent or something along those lines. And they tracked it across the different lead types that they're getting. And it was like, paid ads, the revenue that they're getting per hour spent was like a much lower. And then organic traffic was a little bit higher. And then referrals was just substantially higher than anything else. So obviously, like we said, it's hard to scale referral, but if you can figure out how to harness it more and more, you generally are going to have more profitable, and you're going to literally make more money per hour that you spend, operating your sales process there. So that was some interesting metric, and the guy was telling me that. Yeah.
We also get a fair amount of kind of general inbound through SEO, but we've been doing this for 16 years, and that, if we just started this business tomorrow, would take us a long time to get SEO credibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely just takes time, and organic compounding that trust and everything along those lines is what takes time, but it's also something that you can attain to. You can actually progress towards getting more and more of that trust, more and more of that traffic. It's just not overnight, but that's also what makes it so powerful, is that in order to show up, in order to rank really high, people just have a natural, higher level of trust for it, because they have a general understanding that's taking time to get there. You don't just get to first page of, first placement on Google overnight. So it has been, taking time. Like you said, 16 years, you guys deserve to be ranking and showing up, because you guys have been putting the time, putting in the expertise, and building that trust for a long time. And so it just makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. So one more question before we dig in a little more to the nuts and bolts of your products, but what are you really trying to accomplish through owning your business over the next few years? And if we sat down a few years from now to measure that success, what would ideally that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I've always just loved the journey of being an entrepreneur and just owning your own business. It's been a fun 15 years of doing business. It's part of kind of life. It's almost like, I probably find a little bit of identity and whatnot, and just kind of like going after it, chasing it. I've heard it's kind of equated to being like a pirate, and like, when people are signing up to be a pirate, it's like, yeah, there's a chance you're gonna like find treasure, but like most of the time, like you're doing it for the adventure, you're doing it for like the fun, and I'm chasing it. And there's gonna be some grueling, tough days that are just miserable, and then there's also gonna be days that are just like, high, mountaintop peaks that are just a lot of fun. So definitely the journey of it's a big part of it. Let's see, I had a job, a job for about, I think it lasted 6 or 7 weeks. It was just working at a pizza shop. That's when I was in high school. And I mean, it was good learning experience in certain ways and stuff, but it didn't kind of feel like it didn't feel like that's who I was, and so on. And so, I did get the free pizza perks for like a year or something after that. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, so having a business and being able to have that flexibility, the freedom to be able to, work really hard. I like equating it to kind of like doing business like a lion. Like some days you're hunting down your prey and you're just going hard and you're just constantly just like going after it. And then other days you can take a little bit of time, you can just rest and hang out with the family and do some other fun things as well. And so it's somewhat a little bit more at your pace, and I'm pretty high pace, high caliber, and so constantly going after it. But then there's times you're just like, all right, gonna clock out in a sense and actually enjoy life and enjoy right where I'm at. So yeah, a little bit of a combo of those. And I think as far as identifying a metric that would mean success in the next 5 years, well, still able to keep going at it. So paying the bills in that sense is a big metric as far as an entrepreneur goes. And then seeing progress and scale with, more users, more actually being extremely impactful. So not just more users, but seeing our users actually scale their businesses and grow is a big factor there. So yeah, I think that'd be what I would definitely equate as success for that. So
Awesome. So for the audience, this is not like a standard episode where I talk to a marketing agency owner about building their agency and serving clients. Zach and his team have actually built a couple software products that are, one of the big segments that uses these products is other marketing agencies. So he's really built things that are geared toward other agencies to help them take advantage of the opportunities of new AI technology. So Zach, why don't you outline what your products are and what they do briefly?
yeah, for sure. Well, I'll bring it back to the start of the journey of this part. So we got into AI in 2022, and it was specifically for automations in the marketing space. We were trying to achieve marketing automations back in 2022. It was a little bit before its time, and also more specifically, it was before the user's time, in the sense of there wasn't AI literacy. A lot of people were very, very hesitant, and probably rightly so, because AI was not as smart back then. But we had, we just had a struggle trying to sell AI marketing automation services because people didn't trust it yet. And so then kind of fast forward as the years kind of went on and progressed, we got a little more specific in exactly what we're doing with marketing content and automations, and people felt a little more comfortable with that. And so we're able to actually achieve growing, scaling the SaaS platform called Helm all around marketing automations and helping small, medium-sized businesses and agencies set up automations to just allow the marketing to continue to compound. Like we were talking about, it just literally takes time to achieve organic traffic, whether that's SEO or AEO or Google Business Profile growth and all of those different aspects. It just, and social media as well, it just takes time. And a lot of business owners, it falls into that quadrant of important, but not urgent. And so many business owners forget to ever push content and do it manually just because it takes time. And, hiring an agency, some businesses are super down for that. Some are not as, just wanting to jump on doing that. And so the SMBs would be able to, or maybe they just couldn't afford it. So the SMBs could have a lower priced manual DIY way to automate their content. But more specifically, the agencies were able to, jump onto a system that kept end-to-end context. It kept all of their content in one specific place. They could map out calendars month ahead of whatever content they want to be pushing. It self-optimizes based on the results. And so the AI analyzes the, Google Search Console and Google Analytics 4 and identifies where it can optimize for future growth and further success and so on. And as we're building that, users just wanted us to do more and more for them. And so that essentially turned into us building Willow, which is a AI business building platform. So it's a build anything software. You can, build websites or applications or software or internal systems or agentic workflows, really anything along those lines you can build with Willow. But the more important specific part that I am very passionate about is the ongoing systems of it. So you can, just like how we had empowered our content engine for autonomous content continuously pushing out, we've done that same sort of thing with autonomous systems inside of the business platforms, whether that's handling customer service or whether that's handling your sales or your content as well, or just continuing to build your product more and more and further as well. And then autonomously being able to track your finances and, identify any pricing and market research, and all of those different aspects are really important and key. And right now we have some of the autonomous engine in place. We're calling it the version 1. And so you jump in there, it still is obviously going to take manual setup, manual identification of exactly what you're wanting. But our vision for the future is growing more and more autonomous, although we don't think businesses should ever be 110% autonomous, because we think there's always going to be a level of human involvement that's needed inside of businesses operating. And some businesses more than others. Some can be more autonomous, but that's really what we're optimizing for and building for. So for agencies, they can jump in and they can actually use Willow to build websites and handle workflows, create agentic programs or agentic engines and flows that just autonomously continue to work. But it's all kind of at the directive of the business owner or the operator there. So yeah.
Cool. So Helm is still available too, right?
Correct. Yep. Almost available. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to Willow. I did take the first steps of trying Willow myself this morning, but Helm seems a little more tangible for the audience here, since it's really focused on marketing automation and content creation, right? So maybe we can use an example and walk me through. Say I'm struggling a little bit to kind of figure out AI on my own, and I'm interested in trying out Helm to rent it from somebody who's already figured it out. So say I hypothetically happen to own an accounting and bookkeeping business like I do. And my target market is owners of professional services firms with 5 to 20 employees across the US. And I want to use Helm to try to automate my outreach and engagement and nurturing of those people? Like, how would I go about using Helm in that kind of situation?
Yeah, a good practical situation there. So really, you would jump into Helm and you would, give it the context of your business. We want to make sure that we're writing content not only kind of from your perspective, but also based on and around your context. So that's really important, is that the AI gets trained on who you are. That's pretty straightforward and simple. It'll actually scrape your site and it'll identify all of that. It'll pull a lot of that in, but manually optimizing that's important. And then from there, if you have a couple of keywords that you're specifically wanting to target, everybody generally has some sort of keyword. You can just toss it into the autonomous engine there. So you create an automation is what we call it. And that would then, you'd set up the different specifics of that automation. You'd set up secondary keywords, the core keyword that you're trying to hit, secondary topics or core topics that you're going to want to talk through the lens of, whether it's like, hey, the best accounting firms in 2026, or like, tips and tricks for how to keep your books, or time management when doing your books and finances, those type of different aspects. You'd want to have different angles that the content could talk through. And then from there, you set up some of the other specifics, like how many of these articles do you want to post a month? What days do you want to post on? What images do you want to use? So do you want to use AI generated images, or do you want to use images that you can upload into the brand assets? And either way, it intelligently identifies the image and it places them in the proper places. And then if you want to do like magic links, which would be, we call it magic links, it's internal and external linking. So do you want to link internally to all of your other articles? And also, do you want to link to external third-party references, which these are all super specific things that follow best practices with SEO content. And then you would get that automation going and live, and then it'll just put them on the calendar. And so put that content on the calendar, and it'll just keep every 30 days updated. So let's say you did 4 a month on that specific automation. It would do 4 of those a month, and it would keep 4 of them on the calendar as you're rolling forward. And our goal is to have multiple different automations. So maybe 5 to 7 different article automations would be the key there. So that way you're able to target multiple different kind of aspects of your business. Like maybe you're wanting one target of like,
one of them could be tax and one of them could be like monthly bookkeeping or something, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's the target. And then also sometimes it can be whether it's location based, or it can be specific ICP based. Like maybe you're like have one specific content automation all around bookkeeping for home services or something along those lines. And then one that's all just based on contractors, or one that's based on dentists, or whatever your core ICPs are or whatnot. So you can push out a ton of content consistently and cohesively through. And it also, is all optimized with all the metadata. It has all the images, has internal, external links. It has, content that's created and generated with AEO. So we call it AEO, like answer engine optimization, which is showing up in AI tools and AI overviews. So those are ways to really help achieve creating content at a consistent pace. So we're very much in line with white hat SEO and white hat content practices. We are very much against like black hat or gray hat, which is like either like pushing out content to manipulate the rankings. We're very much about wanting to answer questions or answer queries that people are actually searching, so that you're specifically showing up for that. And we're not trying to actually manipulate the rankings, which means consistency is key on that. You don't want to just be pushing out 100 articles in one day and then nothing for a while, and then 100 articles. If you can just post an article a day and just keep it flowing going, that's a very strong cadence. And then beyond that, you can do the same sort of automations for Google Business Profile or for your social media accounts and so on. So there's a handful of different, places you can push the content and create different automations and get pretty in depth. And it's also very user friendly in the sense of if you just want to kind of tip that, or you can be very, very granular setting it up and getting it rolling and going. Yeah.
All right. So if I'm an agency owner and I want to use this product, I just basically have different Helm accounts for each of my agency clients, and I'd set up the different content automations and campaigns for each of my clients within their own silos. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so we actually have it to where an agency owner can have just one login account, but they can access multiple different accounts within inside of there. So multiple different businesses. And then there's user permission roles for the agency level. So for the organization of the workspace level, the agency owner can give access to either to their employees. They can have their employees or contractors have, full access or just limited access. And then you can also do business specific level access and permissions and roles. And so that way, if you wanted to like give one of your customers access to the system or whatever along those lines, you can do that as well. So there's a handful, kind of a array of different permissions and roles that you can allow for people to do and use. So yeah.
Cool. So I'm sure you're biased since you built and own Helm, but I've worked with another from a couple of years back that was producing kind of weekly content using AI, but they send me the drafts for review, and I was always having to do a ton of editing. And I'm sure the technology's gotten better over the last couple of years, but like, how close to publication ready is this content that Helm produces?
It really depends on how picky the owners, the end user is, or the agency is. So we have a handful of users who just push the content and they don't even look at it, like literally don't ever look at it. And we always tell people like, hey, like we would recommend reviewing it. And, you can jump in there, and what I always tell people is like, hey, plan to spend 15 minutes reviewing all of next week's content. So you jump in there and you just review it all and, give it a quick once over, make sure if you're doing AI images, make sure those are good and make sure that the content's good to go. Most people aren't making very many changes at all and very minimal changes. It's all able to change right there on screen, on the platform. So you can make changes prior to pushing it, publishing it, and so on. There's multiple levels of like review that you can set the content to, but I think that is one of the big aspects of AI right now is that AI is getting to the level and point of being intelligent and smart enough to be able to create content that's on par with what majority of humans are writing. And what we found kind of across the board is that most of the time, our users are actually, when we look at their content before they jump on Helm, it's like very thin. It's not very good content, or even before using other AI tools as well. Very thin, not great content, and their level of expectations for their own content that they're writing was like very, very low.
Right. The expectations for AI seem to be higher than the expectations for humans, right?
Yes, that's spot on. And so that's what we've kind of been finding is like a lot of people are like, they expect the world out of AI, but when you go look at their past content, it was like, hey guys, like your past content was very, cringeworthy in that sense. So as far as, that type of a setup and application goes in that sense, we still think that pushing the bar and pushing the expectations, what we expect out of Helm and out of AI, what it can do, we're always constantly, driving beyond what it currently is capable of doing in that sense. Like we want to be on the leading edge of like, hey, how do we create the best of the best? How do we harness the LLM in a specific way that allows the content to be next level and next level? And it's constantly, as LLMs get smarter and smarter and smarter and push more and more out, that's kind of the race that we're running is how do we keep producing more better than what the frontier models are able to do just talking to them. So that's really what we find as kind of exciting and fun to push that forward. Yeah.
So whether we're using Helm or any other, content assisted tool, most of these agency owners are nervous about the quality, like we've been talking about, and how close to publication ready the output is. So what are some tips and tricks that you could share for helping AI produce content that is as close to publication ready, if not fully publication ready?
Good question. So one of the first thing that I would go back to is making sure that your business context is proper and correct and right. And you spent enough time identifying your, business, giving it the context on who you are, your business, and then also identifying your exact persona. So primary and secondary persona of who you're trying to speak to. And then, so essentially kind of training the LLM just a little bit more than some people would. I would spend a little more time training it because upfront that's going to help. And then setting a wide array of content type. Like if you just give it one automation and you're like, hey, I want you to talk about this every single day, you're going to have a lot more repeat content and so on. So that's where we recommend having multiple automations that are targeting a pretty wide array of different aspects there. And then having like a really good workflow is what I'm really passionate about. I'm super like systems oriented, whether it's like in my household of like how we operate things and making sure that, we do things this way and that way. Like, and ask my wife, she knows that I'm very much a systems person where I love, I love working with a system because that helps things flow a lot smoother. And so being able to have whether it's review, a really solid way that you are constantly reviewing content, whether it's multi-team members that are doing that, or a specific way where you're able to review the content ahead of time and making sure that the review is part of the process. But not only that, also having like a good organizational workflow in the sense of like, where are your articles living? How do you get them onto the site? How do you make sure that the updates are actually properly reflected on the site or your end user's website and so on? And, too many times we've seen people still using like a Google Drive folder of all of the articles. And it's like, yeah, but there's so much data and information that you're missing from just, raw documents living in a folder. Like what day was it posted? What if you need to make edits? Like all these different aspects, and how do you make sure that everybody has the right flow of which article is next and so on without manually making any sort of mistakes? Like if you're just, changing the title where it's like draft and it's like, oh, once it's published, you remove the draft out of the title. Like that's just going to make things more complicated. And that's more of a manual aspect and task and so on. So if you're not using some sort of tool to help you manage your organization level and content, it can get messy very fast. So that's one aspect of using a tool that is very helpful. And then specifically for review and optimization, I think that's where, across the board, you'll find that there's a good level and amount of SEO people who are and organic content people who are very kind of cohesive, but there's also everybody has their own way they like doing things. Everybody has their own most important aspects of SEO and content and whatnot. And so, each marketing agency seems to focus on it differently. Each actual end SEO person likes to do it a little bit differently. And so kind of identifying that, and when you're doing your review, just making sure that you're double checking that and optimizing it there. So that's probably where I'd say most people are pretty comfortable with how intelligent AI is now, but I think it's more of harnessing it, making sure that you're in control of it. Like, let's say you are working in more of a regulated space, you're going to obviously want to have way more review on anything that's regulated and talked about, because AI can still hallucinate and so on as well, or you pull data from the past in that sense. Even though we've done our very best, like harnessing that, it's still a possibility. So making sure that that's, something that you're focusing on and identifying those key things for your end specific user and making sure that you're kind of reviewing it through that lens, I think is important. And then also it really depends on the agency's expectations for AI. Like, are you expecting it to, are you expecting it to be literally a chief editor of some amazing, magazine or something where it just does everything for you? Or are you expecting it to where it's like, hey, this does 90% of the work, I just put in the last 10% and we're good to publish? I think that's a big kind of differentiator of like what people are expecting out of it too. And so, I think the big thing that people kind of maybe overlook in AI right now is, how do you get AI to actually create something that is beyond just slightly kind of regurgitating content over and over and over again? And I think that's really where people, if you can harness that and get it to not just regurgitate content over and over and over, that's really where the power of an autonomous engine comes in and allows you to consistently push more and more content as you're going forward without having to, just feel like you're talking about the same subjects over and over.
So with Helm and other tools, I assume these days when you do your review and editing, you have a way to provide feedback to the agent so they can learn from your reviews and edits and do better the next time.
Yeah, so there's ways to have it optimized in that sense. There are certain ways that you can train the LLM to make it do that, and then other ways, certain things, it depends on the exact SEO person or exact content person, what they're looking for. Sometimes it'll just be a manual process of whatever specifically they're trying to achieve and do. But yeah.
Awesome. So let's move on to Zillow, unless there's anything else you want to talk about regarding Helm.
Yeah, no, I think we covered it pretty well. I think marketing agencies, I would just recommend using some sort of tool that'll help you achieve 90% of the work, if not more, and keep everything organized. So definitely recommend checking something out. And
one more question on Helm specifically. So I know CRM, some agencies manage kind of marketing oriented CRMs like High Level for clients, manage campaigns. So with Helm specifically, if we're using Helm to create a bunch of content and scheduling and everything, is there a way to get that activity linked back to the contacts within High Level or other CRMs?
I don't know if it would target back to contact. Or you mean more specifically like how the contact entered your?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess I'll get this straight in my head here. I'm not a marketing guy. Let's say you publish some posts and then that people click on those posts and then they visit your website. So you want to attribute the website traffic, or you attribute the contact us form completions, the call to action activities to the particular pieces of content that Helm produced.
Yeah, so most of the time it's going to be through just general traffic and traffic analysis of like, hey, how many people got on this web page, how many people got on that web page, and specifically the way that you would attribute it to a specific contact would have to be through like a contact form submission. Like maybe on your blog pages you have a contact form and it can tie it back to each. That would be more on the website building side of things and how you're tagging and tracking people. Specifically, it's not going to be a super clear way across the board to just be like, hey, this was it, because your traffic isn't giving you like specific email addresses of who's specifically accessing each page, and so it won't be quite as it's not like you can just look at your traffic and be like, oh, this guy came exactly through this route and so on through here super easily, because Google kind of doesn't love the aspect of like creeping or tracing people that granularly. There's certain ways that you can do it, and probably ways that are legal, but there's also probably other ways that start getting into the gray zone or whatever. But yeah, so using that was what I was going to say is content. What we found across the board is that I like to look at it as kind of like a pyramid. The goal of additional SEO content isn't always that specific page is what shows up inside the Google rankings and so on. What we found is that having more content and more keywords actually drives your primary pages up higher and further. So your home pages and service pages and the other more specific pages that you're trying to actually get people on in the first place are actually what's surfacing higher and higher. The more content that you have, the more the website's domain authority goes up, the more keywords the website has, the more that those keywords on those very important primary pages are actually being weighted even heavier and heavier. And so there's occasionally at times where we'll be like, hey, this article just like popped off and got so much traffic and it was super great. But more often than not, what we're seeing is that the other pages are actually what's getting more and more traffic, and we're basically kind of pushing it up further and further from the ground. It's kind of like, adding a layer to the pyramid underneath the top layer. So you're like shifting it up higher and higher and higher. So, which is actually the better aspect of content and organic traffic, because I'd way rather have somebody land on a service page than land on, blog article type of a setup there. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, moving on to Zillow. I'm interested in understanding the focus there and the different use cases for it. I did go on there this morning and very briefly started having it build a little app for me, and it just seemed like, it could do, just about anything I asked for. So I didn't really know how to approach it or what the best use cases were for Zillow. So give us a little context into, what Zillow can do and where you see it potentially adding the most value for other businesses.
For sure, for sure. Well, good stuff. And then just to clarify, it's Willow, but I've
Oh, Willow. Yeah, sorry.
definitely made that same mistake of calling it Zillow too. So it's like my mom calling me my brother's name or something. But yeah, so Willow is specifically our goal for it is to have end-to-end context of a business so that you can have agentic workflows and autonomous engines that are actually flowing and operating based on full context of the business rather than siloed and isolated. Going back to the whole aspect of Helm that I was saying, the best content that you can create is content that has full context of your business. So that's the same sort of thing with the best customer service, the best sales, the best financial review. All of those types of activities are much more impactful if it has full end-to-end context of the business. And so with Willow, you can jump on there and you can actually build whatever it is. You can build a website or a software or an internal system or agentic programs and automations. And that is actually, that's kind of what I would consider like the building blocks of what you're doing. So, having a website, it gives you full context there and so on. But then specifically, you can have the automation of continuous content that's being pushed on there, or you can have the automation of lead generation that you're trying to fill your funnel that's driving people to the website, and it has end-to-end context, so it can actually identify, hey, this is a better conversion path, so let's optimize this here, or let's change this there, and so on. So it actually has end-to-end context to be able to do that. It is kind of along those lines, like you're saying, it can be very open-ended in the sense of what it can do, and so that sometimes can be it can almost be like there's so many options, so many things you can do with it. It can be overwhelming for people and so on. But I think if you have a pretty clear idea of like, hey, I wanted to achieve this, or I want to do that, or if you have an existing business and you're just wanting to migrate it onto the new platform, then that sort of a thing works really smoothly and well because you can kind of drive the train. And that's where I was saying like AI can definitely bring a lot to the table, but having that human knowledge or human understanding of like, this is my vision, this is where I want to go with it. And AI can help you kind of crack that a little bit, but taking it forward and really driving the train in that sense can be really powerful. And yeah, so you can jump in there and you can build pretty much whatever it is that you're looking to build and you want, and then you can set up automations to market it or automations to run the customer service and so on, which helps with buying back time and allowing the owner to really focus on the areas that they are more passionate about and they actually are better at, and not kind of getting tied up in the minutia of running a business and whatnot. So yeah.
So Willow is designed to actually interact directly with customers if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. It can interact with them.
That makes, so that makes me very nervous. I mean, I know big Fortune 500 companies been doing it for a long time now, at least a few years, which is a long time.
Yeah.
But I've been playing around a little bit with OpenClaw personally, and so powerful, but scares the heck out of me, the idea of actually letting some system talk directly to my clients. I don't know what exactly it's going to say and how's it going to represent my business and my brand. So like, how do you get your arms around, or how do you like guardrail this so that it doesn't embarrass you and it actually helps you?
Yeah, I know that's a super good question there in that sense. And I think it would be kind of a threefold answer. The great part is you can have escalation parts where basically, let's say a chat is going sideways or the person just asked for a representative or anything along those lines. You can have it escalate up to a real human. So it doesn't always have to be that. you also don't have to choose to implement AI talking with customers at all. Like you can choose to avoid that 100% if you want. It's completely up to your discretion if you want to use it that way or not. Um, I think going back to, like I was saying, back in 2022, when we were trying to sell automations, marketing automations for AI, and that was more just kind of on the content and, email marketing side of things as well. People were super hesitant about it back then. And that's because people didn't trust AI. They didn't really even wrap their heads around it back then. And so being able to have it do certain things that they're just not fully trusting of it. So I think as time goes on, people will have a better level of trust for AI, which is going to help people just be more willing, not only business owners to be more willing to do it, but also the end user is going to be more okay. As time goes on, they'll be more and more okay with talking to an AI receptionist or whoever it is on the other end, because people are just going to get more and more comfortable with talking to ChatGPT or to Claude or whatever it is. People are getting more and more comfortable with it. And as they get more comfortable with that, they're going to be more comfortable with talking to a specific AI receptionist at a specific company. And with the understanding and knowledge of like, hey, this thing may not be giving 100% accurate information, but it's the same sort of thing with human receptionists. I've talked to many human receptionists that tell me one thing and I call back later or whatever, I deal with it later. I've been dealing with waste management. They're very big. And man, I feel like I've been hitting my head against the wall, and it's been humans the entire time. I've actually thought to myself multiple times, I literally wish this was an AI system that I could just talk to. And I think I could get further with AI and certain things. So yeah, it is definitely something that just needs to build people's trust over time. And then I think that that is a true, aspect of being cautious with where you allow AI to sit as far as in between you and your customers. So some people are going to be like, hey, I'm 100% like, let's send it, let's just go after it and use all AI. And other people are going to be much more conservative with it, not want AI to touch it. I mean, we've had everything from people saying like, hey, I would never have AI talk to my customers, to people specifically saying, I want you to create a live video call chatbot that when somebody jumps on my screen, an AI avatar is in my bottom right corner, and they're just literally talking to the customer as if it's like a FaceTime or just like what we're doing right here. And I'm like, wow, that's like going deep into like letting AI like take over in that sense. So it's you get the full gamut. And, as far as that business owner's users, some of the users may be turned off by that. And that's a choice that business owner was willing to make, because he also thinks that other users, he'll be able to provide better value for that as well. And so it's kind of, I guess, in a sense, narrowing down your specific ICP and who you're wanting. So it's kind of almost two levels for us. Like we have the level of needing to build the trust for the business owner to be willing to use it, but then also the business owner has to be willing to help his customers or her customers build trust with AI as well. So it's a complicated aspect there, but I think it's only going to become more and more common. So
Yeah, it's funny. 10 years ago, before AI was real, we had people pretending they had AI, but it's really humans pretending to be bots. And now some people on the aggressive end have, bots pretending to be humans, like the inverse of that. Or then somebody like me, who's a little more cautious, might say, well, I really see the benefit of integrating AI directly with customers. I'm nervous about, pretending it's human. Maybe I should just, present it as an AI bot agent, so my customers know it's AI. It's still going to be very good. Frankly, it's probably going to be better than entry-level human receptionists and agents, because we've all had that experience. You mentioned waste management. You call these companies and you deal with, a very low-level person who's inconsistent, doesn't have access to a lot of information, is definitely not an expert. It takes a long time. It's a pain in the neck. Nobody really likes to do it. So I'm probably much rather, if I'm a business owner, I'd probably much rather have my customers deal with a bot where they can get their information and answer very quickly and have the option to escalate it to a human if they're not able to get what they need, right? Something like that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, and that is a funny kind of juxtaposition there, where 10 years ago they're pretending that there's AI, but it was humans, and now it's AI pretending that it's trying to be human. But being upfront and honest, and um, not trying to hide the fact that it's AI, I think it's fine. And across the board, my personal thought and opinion is that it does help businesses be more economically streamlined, which can help them provide a better service for the customer at the end of the day, and b also provide a cheaper service, which is very beneficial for especially SMBs and agencies who are trying to scale and grow and whatnot. And but it's funny, I think wasn't QuickBooks one of the ones that was pretending to be AI, and it was like, hey, we'll use AI to identify upload a picture of your receipt, and we'll use AI to identify and classify it or whatever. And like 10 years ago or something, but it was actually people overseas who were like, when they're awake, they're doing it. So sometimes it would happen really fast, and sometimes it would take like 24 hours or whatever, but it was like humans on the other end. I don't know. I heard that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with QuickBooks specifically. They're kind of, big behemoth black box. You never really know what's going on behind the scenes. But I know some of my competitors who are advertising, AI automated bookkeeping, 10 years ago. They had, big operations in the Philippines or India doing the work and pretending to be bots. So that's kind of what I'm aware of.
That's so funny. Yeah. And what accounting software do you generally encourage people?
We're very QuickBooks centric. We work with clients primarily in the US, where QuickBooks has 90% or whatever market share in the small and mid-sized business space. So I always tell clients, look, your general ledger software is probably not going to be the competitive advantage for your business. So focus your creative energy someplace else and use the standard thing that any bookkeeper knows how to use, and integrates with more third-party systems than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, I've always done QuickBooks, and I've been tempted to try some of the other ones, but I just haven't been. I mean, the learning curve alone, I feel like, is what kind of keeps me from jumping onto other bookkeeping software or whatever. But yeah, I know AI has probably been pretty impactful as far as accounting and so on goes, to where you guys can use more of your expertise and identify, exactly how things are going, and making sure that things are right and proper without having to constantly get into like every bit of the minutia of every single transaction or something. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, we definitely trying to use it as much as possible. There's interesting. There's certain components of QuickBooks that still are not as efficient as they could be, that still require somebody to log in and manually do things to get bank and credit card transactions coded properly. Or you can like turn on automation, but there's going to be a lot of mistakes. So you'd rather just quickly eyeball it before it posts than have everything post, and then you have to go in and find that needle in a haystack after it's already posted. So different philosophies there, but and then with third-party APIs, we do a lot of that. We have our own practice management system that integrates with QuickBooks via API. And we try to do a lot with that, but there are certain parts of the API that are closed, that are not accessible in QuickBooks, like the bank and credit card feeds being the main one that I'd love to have access to for, if for no other reason, just kind of quality control. So in real time, we can look and see, are we up to date with processing the bank and credit card feeds for clients? Yes or no? We have anything that's more than like 48 hours old that we haven't touched yet? Things like that. We can't really do that right now. So I'm hoping Intuit opens it up, but I feel like they're also just, trying to avoid, they want people to continue to log in and use QuickBooks and not turn it over to third parties. Like they just announced an integration with Claude a few weeks ago, I think. But it's kind of a one-way, from what I understand, it's kind of a one-way push of certain data at the summary report level, not the individual transaction level. So I think we'll have to see what the API strategy of Intuit is over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I think that'll be probably one of the more interesting ones to watch, because um, there's obviously going to be competitors that like creep up, and if a competitor like really embraces AI and like cracks the code and solves that problem for people, then I think it'll take a lot of that market share from QuickBooks. And so they probably kind of have to play that fine line of not not opening up too much to where anybody and everybody can just like it's almost open source at that point in time, but kind of ride that fine line in that sense. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But
It's summertime, approaching summertime, and that's when QuickBooks raises its prices every year. So we just got an email. I got to read it. It's in my inbox about the annual price increase, but like QuickBooks keeps charging more and more, and you'd think it wouldn't need to do that, but I guess it can, so it does.
yeah, that's the challenge. I know. I hate with their price increase. Like I'm always like, man, we spend so much money on that, but it's sometimes. I mean, it's definitely worth it. It's one of those things like, but the tough part is that it's not necessarily like making us more money in that sense. It's just making life easier. But yeah, yeah, it's good though. Lots of crazy cool uses for AI as far as how things are going and everything, and definitely having a accounting agency like you guys being able to handle a lot of the back end side of things where like marketing agencies don't have to even think about that. Like I can see how powerful that can be for people. So
Yeah, we love working with marketing agencies. They're creative, pleasant, nice people, but they don't have to deal with the accounting and the bookkeeping, so they're happy to have us take care of it for them.
yeah, that's a good way to go for sure, for sure. Yeah, I've always actually enjoyed running the books. I think my biggest challenge is doing it. Like my goal is to get it done by the 10th of every single month, and it just doesn't happen most of the time. And I'm like I wish I could consistently just do it because I actually like it, and I feel like it tells you such a good like story. Is maybe the underrated term, but like it shows you the picture of like how things are doing and like how your business is doing, if you need more sales or whatever, any sort of aspect like that. It's like so clear if you like understand it and you get it. And if you get the reports in time, then you actually are able to make intelligent decisions based on that. So um, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of it. And I kind of find it as fun and whatever to just like see the picture. Basically it's almost like doing a puzzle, like as you're like doing the counting, like putting things in places and whatever. It's like, all right, like looking for the end picture is like pretty cool. So
We layer on a financial performance metrics scorecard on top of the financial statements every month for clients to really try to make that story more clear. Because sometimes it's hard to look at an income statement and a balance sheet and a cash flow statement and interpret it and figure out what the story is and look over the right periods of time and see how things are trending over time. So we try to paint that picture, write that book, tell that story, whatever you call it, whatever analogy you use. We try to present that to clients every month so they can really understand what the story is that their books could be telling them.
that's cool. That's cool. And then is the scorecard and like the scoring of it, is it based on like their industry standard? Is it based on how their business has historically done? Is it based on like how do you generally like what are the benchmarks that you basically are scoring against?
Yeah, I mean, we can do general benchmarks based on the industry, but we really try to customize it more toward the client business owner's financial objectives because some clients are in that growth phase where they don't care about optimizing profit margins, but they want to really focus on the metrics for revenue growth and cost of customer acquisition and average lifetime value of the client. They might not be that profitable now, but they're adding more clients at a very good return on investment rate. And as long as they can keep cash flow positive, life is good. And then they'll get to a certain scope and then size, and then they'll start to try to optimize profit margins. And we'll start to care a lot more about labor loaded gross margin, labor value multiple, overhead as a percentage of revenue. Some of the more the metrics that matter to more mature companies start to become very important when they start to really drive profitability and cash flow and trying to put distributions in the pockets and retirement plans of the owners. So it really kind of depends. We can certainly come up with general benchmarks based on industries and our client base, but we try to make it more meaningful to the individual business owner.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can see how impactful that could be. I love that.
So I know we're coming to the end of the hour here, Zach, but I want to understand your story, your personal story a little bit more. So if we go back to the days of little Zach, did you think or know you'd be an owner of a business one day and the kind of business that you have now?
Yeah, that's a fun question. So as a kid, I definitely was always very like kind of business minded in that sense, very a lot more on kind of the real estate construction side of things. My dad was a builder, and so I pretty much grew up on job sites ever since I was in diapers, swinging hammers, and along with my brother. So my brother, we're just a year and a half apart. We do everything together. He's my co-founder in all of my businesses too. But we've always just been kind of drawn to the journey of running your own business and doing things differently than other people in a sense, or than just getting a job in that sense. So running a business was kind of always in the cards at some level, some aspect. I did not as much expect it to be online or software. I was always drawn to software, but I didn't expect it to be there since I was a little kid in that sense. And then we went on a 9-month sailing trip from San Diego to Austria. We hit all the islands in the South Pacific when I was in high school. Dropped out of high school early, but actually was taking college classes at night to be able to get all the extra credits that I needed to be able to go on the sailing trip. And that really opened my eyes to being able to see like the world is just like so amazing. We have such a beautiful world that we live in, so wonderful. And there's so many different ways to live life and so many different people who are like doing things and like you can chase a paycheck or you can chase like more of a journey of what you're going for. And so definitely went more for chasing the journey of what it is. And like I said, there's been high highs and low lows where it's part of the struggle as we're going forward and whatnot. But yeah, it's been since then I definitely knew that kind of doing something more substandard than just getting a job and getting a paycheck was going to be kind of in the cards, and always been frugal. So there's times of feast and famine as far as finances go. And that's kind of how I've, grown up since a kid and whatever. So definitely had the vision of owning and operating and running businesses from an early age. Yeah.
And what was there any particular point in time you just said, I'm going to really embrace and do something with AI?
Let's see. Yeah, probably in 2020 when we started doing the marketing automations. In that sense, that was when we started like diving into it and learning a ton more about it. It was, just a little bit before it kind of became like a publicly, recognized thing in that sense. And so we're doing some of the deeper research on AI and machine learning and all of that. It was just kind of starting to change from calling it machine learning in a lot of spaces to AI in that sense. And that was really the aspect. And one of the reasons for that was kind of earlier in our career, we had a tiny house manufacturing company where we had 50 employees, and it was like a big operation working too many hours. And I didn't love having that many employees, especially like a little bit on the rougher end of contractors. It's a little bit harder, especially when they're all like 10 plus years older than I was. And so it was definitely like a time where I learned a lot and I was able to be stretched and grown in a lot of ways. And I enjoyed some parts of it as well. But after we exited out of that, me and my brother were like, let's plan on not having employees again in the future. And so finding ways to optimize our processes and everything that we're doing. And since then, we've had a handful of employees and we still have them, and we're looking to grow as we go forward, and we've loved it. So we're not anti-employee in that sense, but we're more of like, hey, let's keep our overhead low. Like overhead is such a burden in so many ways if you don't have a solid, consistent way to support it. And so, being able to scale at a proper growth rate is super important to us. And so using AI to optimize and streamline as much as we possibly can with that human oversight is really what we find as super exciting and really fun. And so that's kind of when we decided like, all right, dude, let's sink our teeth into AI and like really figure out how to harness it and not rely 100% on it, but do as much of the heavy lifting with it as we can. So yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zach, for sharing your story and getting into some of the details about how, you're harnessing AI for yourself and allowing agencies to harness AI for their clients. If folks want to check out Helm or Willow or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can check out our personal website at francisbrothers.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter through just searching my name, Zach Francis. And Willow, the website is willow.ai. And then Helm is helmhq.ai. So those are a couple different websites and places that you can find what we're up to. And keep in touch and whatever. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn or wherever. So definitely, feel free to shoot me a connection request on there, and happy to accept that and all that good stuff. So love getting to hear other people's stories too, and helping, just figure out how to make their business more optimized and streamlined with better systems and so on. So that's really one of my favorite things. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Zach. I really appreciate your time. And for those listening, I'm sure we all learned something today. So it'd be great to kind of share this podcast, let your peers in the industry know that it exists. We're all in this together. So let's spread the word if you've enjoyed the episode. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Cal, thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a good, fun time chatting and whatnot. So I really enjoyed it.
Cool. This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, visit empoweringhealthybusiness.com. If you would like to have a one-on-one discussion with me, or possibly engage SmartBooks to help with your business, you can reach me at C-A-L, at empoweringhealthybusiness.com, or message me on LinkedIn, where I am easy to find. Until next time, this is Empowering Healthy Business, the podcast for business owners, signing off.